All right, welcome to You Don't Know Ball. We are going to be talking about the NFC and AFC championship games today. First, let's start off with the Detroit Lions at the San Francisco 49ers. Dobbs, who do you have winning this game?
So, all right, here's how I'm going to answer this. Logically, I do have the 49ers, right? But that's not who I'm going to pick. I'm going to pick the Lions because I'm going hard overhead again. And it went really bad for me last time with the Bills. But here's the thing. I was thinking about it. It's like, you got to go out on your sword, right? Because if the Lions don't win this game, it'll be the last game I have to go hard overhead on. Because the Lions are the last team really where it's standing where I'd really, would love to see them win. It's not like, I'd have no problem with anyone, obviously. I have no problem with anyone. But it's like the Lions got the best story. Still got that no Lombardi in town. Like, the Lions are the last team I'm really, really pulling for, right? So with that said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go hard overhead again. I'm going to rock with Detroit. And if I go out on my sword, at least I went on my sword, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to go Detroit. I have to pick San Francisco. My dad said something pretty funny to me because I was like, I just feel like the lights will be too bright for Detroit. And he's like, they haven't been there in like 30 years. They won't know what it is. They don't know any better. And I'm like, that is kind of a good point. It's not like they've been deep in the playoffs before. And, they're really playing with house money. Like, they didn't have a playoff win in 30 years. So they have a lot of opportunity, in my opinion, to really prove a lot of people wrong. And I don't think I think they got to the point they needed to get to with this team. Like, if they lose this game, I don't think anyone's going to be like, oh, no, this was their year. Like, I mean, I think everyone's saying it's the 49ers year. Like, it really has to be for them.
Well, yeah. No, well, so over to that point, like, obviously, if you're a Lions fan, you don't want to hear that. But if you're a Niners fan, you agree completely because we're at a really critical point where we always talk about after last year, you're going to have Brock Purdy on the cheap contract. You got some decisions to make there. And like we were saying, crazy, but they don't get the job done this year. You got a lot of things you're looking at. Potentially Kirk Cousins. It's crazy, but I think there's going to be a lot of things on the table.
I just don't see, if you don't make the Super Bowl this year, I don't know how you run it back with Brock Purdy. Because Brock Purdy, I think, has run their team like very well. But if you think about it, or if you kind of have seen, like, when he has bad games, they're like really bad games. Like, when it came out today that he's still like an MVP candidate, I get why he's in there, but also at the same time, it's like, if you put Kirk Cousins in that offense, do you think they're not cooking? Like, they're definitely cooking. And, like, when Deebo Samuel's out, like, that team is not the same team. Like, the Packers really should have won that game. If Anders Carlson doesn't miss that kick, they're going to overtime. But also another part of this game we should talk about is when Detroit got shafted out of a win in Dallas.
But think about it all week.
Like, think about it. Like, Detroit should have been the one with the bye, not San Francisco.
And that's the thing is, even if they got their bye this week, I wouldn't, obviously, as you'd agree, we're not even concerned about it at this point. But seeing this game played at Ford Field is what we would be concerned with. And of all the years where the Lions, you say it really deserved it and really would have been the prime time to have it, I think every NFL fan who's not a 49ers fan would agree. You can even take Lions fans out of this too. Just every bipartisan fan. I say 9 out of 10 of us would agree. We'd prefer to see this game played at Ford Field. That would be tons of fun.
I really would like to.
And it kind of evens out the playing field.
What is the weather like for this Sunday in San Francisco or Santa Clara?
If I heard last week correctly, I believe it's just supposed to be clear skies.
Sunday, it is going to be mostly cloudy.
Oh, okay.
Let's pray for some showers, man.
Things have
Brock
changed.
Purdy cannot operate in the rain, and I really want the Lions to win this game. Even as a Bears fan, like, I hate the 49ers more. Like, okay, I'm probably going to get crucified for saying this, but when I was watching that Packers game, I was actually rooting for the Packers to win. Because, and I have never done that, but I hate what the 49ers are. Because they haven't won a Super Bowl in so long, but everyone talks about them like they're this like super impressive team, which they are. Like, they have one of the best rosters in the NFL, but kind of like the Bills, it's like, okay, you've been good for X amount of years now, and you still haven't got it done. So it's kind of like, I don't really care.
What you're saying is you just can't put them in that same extreme elite echelon as a few of these other squads we talk about.
No, we can.
And at this point, really, there's only like one that's really in that tier.
Who, the Chiefs?
Yeah, like, I mean, we're kind of in a weird point right now.
Yeah. I don't know. So, like, what do you think, before we move on to the next game, are really going to be, like, keys for what? Okay, give me two keys that the Lions need to do in order to win this game, and two keys for the 49ers to do to win this game.
The Lions are going to have to bring out very consistently a lot of two running back, 2 tight end sets, abuse them in the run game, be able to take big chunks out the clock every drive, and consistently score touchdowns. To be like, honestly, and the thing is, the Packers got close to replicating that same game plan, but stalled out a lot of times. If the Lions can just take that same game plan and get out there and actually score touchdowns, the Lions definitely have a shot. Again, I think it is going to come down a lot, though. More as much as the Lions' offense is going to do, it's going to depend on getting pressure on Brock Purdy. Like, if the Lions have a game where they can get no pressure, it doesn't matter how good the offense plays. I think it'd be a type of game where you could go out here and put up like 35, and the Lions will come out and score 42. Like, you got to get pressure on Purdy. Because, and here's what I compare this to, is what I was going to bring up earlier. I think a good game to kind of go back to and circle here is if we go back to October 22nd when the Ravens came in and literally whooped the Lions 38-6. It's these running teams where if they're going to chew the clock on you and you can't do the same thing back, you're just going to get.
That's what the Packers were doing. They were chewing the clock like crazy. And it's funny you mentioned like the run game for one of those points because I agree. I think people are really, really heavily overrate the 49ers run defense. Oh, they have the least yards running. Well, because their offense is always scoring. The teams that are playing you are always throwing the ball. And I think, honestly, the Lions are probably one of the worst matchups they could have had because between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and with that O-line, I feel like the Lions are going to have a big day on the ground.
No, I agree completely, especially where everybody, they're getting healthier. They're getting rounded back into form more than ever. It's going to be the toughest game of the year so far that they have a chance to win. Because the toughest game of the year still was that Ravens game. And again, even if you win this, you're likely still going to have to go face them again. And if not, you're going to have to face a Chiefs team who's even hotter, which is borderline scarier. Lions obviously have a tough road ahead of them no matter what. But I think look, no matter what I'm really trying to say here, it's very possible. But then for the Niners, like we were saying, the reality is if you can just play your normal game, and just run the ball well like you always do. The play-action game is kicking. And if you're the one who wins the clock battle, I see no way that the Niners don't win. But that is certainly the Lions' recipe, is if they can pull off all the things we just said.
I agree. I mean, I think, like you said, if the Lions run the ball, I think if they're able to get – okay, so I agree with, like, getting sacks on Brock Purdy. I think it's going to be very crucial for them to do that early. Like dialing up like cornerback blitzes and stuff like that to kind of get in his head where he's always looking around and stuff. I think when you saw the Packers game, like he just didn't look right. I understand it was raining and everything, but it's like he reminds me of a little bit of Goff earlier in his career where it's like if he got rattled, it was like hard for him to get 100% back into the game. But with that being said, the 49ers, in my opinion, have better coaching. They have the better roster, everything like that, more skill on offense. So they really should win this game. And kind of what we were talking about earlier, like if Shanahan is not able to get this done, I think there's a lot of hard questions that happen this offseason.
Oh, yeah. If they don't, especially this game, especially not even just going all the way, especially this game, it is going to be a devastating offseason for the 49ers.
I agree. Do you have anything else you want to say on this game before we move on to the next one?
Nothing other than, which is crazy to say, I actually am looking more forward to this than the AFC Championship. Even though I don't think that the matchup per se is like as enticing or, star-powered, the fact that the Lions truly have a chance to go to the Super Bowl is insane. So
they've never been to a Super Bowl.
I'm going to love to watch this game. This is going to be crazy.
They've never been to a Super Bowl. I think it's also crazy that the reason I'm excited for this game more than the other one too is I feel like the other game is going to be more of like a defensive matchup. This one, you're going to see, like, in my opinion, more points scored, and it's going to be, like, a little bit more of an offensive show. And I think it's going to make for a better, like, TV game, if that makes sense.
No, and you know what? I'll throw something on top of that. I think that there will be just more crazy. Like, if there's a turnover, it's going to be crazy in a game like this. Like, you know how it is? It's either, like, Brock Purdy getting tipped at the line. You know what I mean? Jared Goff under pressure throwing something crazy. Like, if there's crazy moments, I feel like they'll be crazier. Like, crazy bad. It'll be like the craziness will peak in this game.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Let's move over to the AFC Championship game. We have Kansas City at Baltimore. Dobbs, who are you taking?
You know, I've been thinking about this one a lot. And I think, again, I'm going to stick with them. It's hard because everything we know about the Chiefs' pedigree tells me to take the Chiefs. But this year's Ravens really do feel a little bit different. Like, they really do feel like that team. Where every year there is like a, every year there's a that team. And I would say only a third of the time they go all the way. So it doesn't really mean that much. But this year's Ravens team is a truly dominant force on both sides of the ball, on special teams. I mean, you literally have the greatest kicker of all time. Like, they have all the boxes checked, which is something you really can't say about many teams throughout the course of history. Again, with everything being checked. And the Ravens really do have it. They have, as we know, a very, very, I don't trying to think of the right word here, but established, well-respected coach. It feels like, really, it does feel like this is the Ravens' year to go. Like I said, more than anything, it's the Ravens' year to lose. Like, if they don't win it, it's their right. Like, it's their year to. Are they going to go take what is theirs, or they're going to fold? And that's just how I'm kind of looking at it right now.
So, I mean, I look at this game like, here's my thing. The Chiefs, I will say this: if Patrick Mahomes is able to make it to the Super Bowl with that supporting cast on offense, I don't ever want to hear that he's not the quarterback one in the league. Like, I've heard a lot of discourse, Josh Allen, blah, blah, blah. No. Josh Allen has one of the best receivers in football. I know he has been on the downturn recently, but in terms of, like, what the Chiefs have on offense, like, Kelsey turned it on last game, but before that, he really wasn't doing much. It was the Rashee Rice and Isaiah Pacheco show. And if he's able to overcome this incredible Ravens defense with an electric Ravens offense also putting up points, there should never be another argument as long as he's in the league that there's a quarterback better than him.
No, I would say not only that. We're already at that point. Like, it's, to be honest, I've already viewed it that way, and it's like, if you're not viewing it that way, it's like you're insane. But let's just say you are still one of the few people that is viewing it that way. Here's what I will say. If you're going to still somehow try to find a way to say Mahomes isn't the best, here's what you really need. You really can't say after this year if Mahomes goes all the way. They really can't be one of those people who is riding for your quarterback, and then the excuse for them is that they need more weapons. See how that's never going to work again? Yeah. And what's funny is, for me, that's why I've been saying, I already don't want to hear that shit after last year. Like, yes, certain teams and certain QBs are always going to need more weapons, but that's the thing, is then if anything, that just speaks to your quarterback. Like, we've seen it. The blueprint has been laid out over the course of history. The two greatest quarterbacks of all time, it's already settled, in my opinion. Tom is still number one, and now we have Mahomes at 2. But they've already given us the blueprint that, look, if I am talented enough and on my offensive play caller is intelligent enough, you really don't need a lot of weapons around you. What you need is guys that are smart and that can find holes in the space. Most underrated thing is you don't even need great route runners or anything. You need guys that understand where to go. If you have that, you can win.
See, I think there should have been an argument for Patrick Mahomes to be MVP this year. I mean,
absolutely.
Really, like if you look at that team and he's not on there.
But that's the problem, is that stats drive everything with the MVP narrative. And I think we're kind of going to start rounding a point where that's not the thing anymore.
I'm really okay with Lamar winning it, though.
Oh, no, that's the thing. Of all the years that, like, you got to give it to Lamar this year. And not just the record, it's the first year in the new offense again, showing he can dominate again. There's a lot of reasons that I would say that, like, Lamar edged him out. But I agree. The fact that he wasn't more in the discussion is kind of indicative of the process.
Yeah. So, what do you think? How do you think this game goes? What do you think the score is going to be?
Again, so here's what I'll say. I think it's like, if the Ravens can just play their game. That's the problem, though. Do nerves get in their head? Do they show up and be the same team that they are? If they are the same team that they are, I think that the way it is right now, they could win this game by 2 scores, 10, 14, and because more than anything, keep that ball on the ground, play great defense as they have all year. If they can do those 2 things, there's no way that they shouldn't be able to get up a few possessions on the Chiefs, because we know this Chiefs offense so far has not been anything electric. They obviously turn it up when it's time, but if this Ravens defense cannot contain them, we're screwed. I guess if the Niners make it, that's a whole different can of worms. But I'm sorry, you've already seen what the Ravens did to the Niners earlier in the year. Yeah. You see what they did to the Lions. It's almost like, that's why I'm saying it's Chiefs' year to lose. It's the Ravens' year to lose, because it's like, or to win, however you say that. You get my point. Because it's like, they have shown what they are.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Ravens, in my opinion, are the most complete team out of the 4 left. And you could talk about like how the 49ers may have a better roster, but the Ravens are much better at the position that matters most.
And I think too, that's the thing, though, is you could argue that, but almost not, because it's like the Ravens too just have so many players that nobody talks about for whatever reason. All-star players though, right? Like Justin Matabuki never gets any love. Like Geno Smith doesn't get tons of love. Kyle
Geno
Hamilton.
Stone.
Why did I say Geno Smith? Geno Stone has been getting.
Geno Smith is out there playing safety.
Yeah, hey, that's hilarious. But I appreciate that. And then there's a lot of guys like Kyle Hamilton finally started getting his praise like halfway through the year.
Tyler Lindenbaum, even as their center, like they have a good O-line.
No, so Kyle Van Noy's been playing great football this year. Clowney's been playing great football.
Roquan Smith, Patrick Queen.
That's not like you.
Clowney's even been playing well.
They have like that's what I'm saying. They have guys across the field that nobody that like doesn't really get a lot of credit. Where a lot of the other guys, they still do get the same credit because for whatever reason the Ravens kind of like haven't hopped into the mainstream. I don't know. It's weird. Even though they should be. They're a big franchise. It's weird dichotomy with the Ravens. But so that's what I'm saying. It's like really the way I view it, the Ravens are the best roster and they have been playing the best football. So it's like if they can't, here's another thing. Because we say it like it's like with Windows and shit. If the Ravens can't do it with this roster like we've been saying about a lot of the teams, I think there's definitely also you got to make some changes this offseason. That's the thing too is if you play as well as you did with this roster and then you choke in the playoffs, I don't think there's just, again, a running it back. I think that there's some changes that have to be made. Obviously not anything major, but there will have to be questions that have to be asked because this team, especially for the front office, this has got to be a roster that's going to go all the way.
I am not all that concerned with if the fact they don't win it this year. I feel like it has to be either this year or next year. Because in my opinion, first off, you have to pay Justin Madubuike. He's a free agent.
He's going to get a bag.
But in my opinion, I think you bring in like a high value free agent receiver. Because I don't know if you saw, but Mark Andrews is back for the game, I believe.
It's going to be crazy.
So it's going to be crazy if OBJ is able to get a ring with the Rams and the Ravens.
See, he already has, in my opinion, a solidified Hall of Fame career. Just because he's one of those few guys where the stats itself doesn't necessarily speak it, but I think
he's just kind of like a legendary player.
He has a big story in football also. It's like he kind of like fits into both categories. And he does have a lot of accolades too. And I don't necessarily think he's done collecting accolades maybe all the way yet if he can come back for a couple more years, especially if they can win the Bowl this season.
Like people forget he was in Cleveland. That's so weird.
He's had a weird history, but he has truly had it would not be a Hall of Fame career anytime soon. He's like one of those guys that would get it way down the road.
Yeah.
But I think there's he's speaking himself more and more into that. And again, if he can win this ring, I think it just catapults him further into a Hall of Fame career.
I could see the argument for it. I don't know if I'm on that train. It's gonna be also funny to see Dalvin Cook win a ring. Like, why the fuck is he on the Ravens, bro?
See, I don't mind these. See, I always think I don't mind those type of situations though. Like, you know what?
Like Zach Ertz is on the Lions. Like, what the hell?
Cosmically, bro, they did something right.
It's weird.
And karma said, you know what? I'm gonna get you right now. You're in the right place, right time.
So there's about a 50% chance Zach Ertz or Dalvin Cook gets a ring this year.
Yeah, I guess. It's like a 20. It's technically
25%,
25 for each of them.
That's what I'm saying.
But that really is.
Yeah.
So there's a 50% chance all in all. Yeah, you're right. One of them gets a ring.
See, like this is why I wanted the Titans to blow it up and trade Henry to the Ravens.
Bro, why did that never happen?
I don't know,
bro.
Well,
why did we not get to see Derrick Henry on a playoff team right now?
Before we wrap up this game, or let's actually wrap up this game and then let's just do whatever discourse to end the episode. So, any other thoughts on this game?
Yeah, not too much on this one, other than I am very excited, and I think every NFL fan is. This is going to be an absolute classic, as long as everyone stays healthy.
I agree. I think it's gonna be kind of more of a defensive game, but it's gonna be high stakes. I feel like it's gonna be a very high stakes game.
This is very legacy defining.
Yes. That's a really
good
this
very
good one.
That's where I think if anything the Ravens are at the disadvantage, because if you're the Chiefs, you're waking up man, our legacy is already you're never satisfied with your legacy if you're a legend, but you're my legacy's already cushy, and then if you're the Ravens, you're legacy. We gotta go get legacy. You know what I mean? There's a much different dichotomy waking up that morning.
So what did you think of the Titans hiring the OC from the Bengals to be their head coach?
No problems with it. I think, again, we're obviously leaning much more towards everyone wants to get an offensive play caller as their head coach, which, side note, which makes
Raheem
the Falcons
Morris,
siding so interesting. What are they cooking?
Also, Bill Belichick is out of a job. We'll just have discourse these last couple minutes. It's nothing even insightful. It's just a lot of weird stuff happening around the league.
Yeah, I think this is what makes it very weird. Right now, I think the hiring I probably feel the best about the entire league, it's crazy, is Antonio Pierce. Like, and I don't like if you're a Chargers fan, obviously you're very like you're very optimistic about Harbaugh and I'm not saying there's anything that you should be. Like I think Harbaugh is going to work out just fine. But I'm not ready to jump all the way on the bandwagon that like bringing in Harbaugh is just like absolutely going to like fix the culture, because I'm just never going to be black and white like that. Like I do think I'm leaning towards that it should.
Well, I also think it's weird that they also haven't hired a GM right now.
Yeah, no, that is. And then also, and glad you said that, because now it brings me to another pivot.
The Patriots.
Tom Telesco on the Raiders?
Bro,
yo,
what the fuck?
No, actually laughing out loud when I saw, and this is what makes it even weirder. If Raiders fans, I would love if y'all would leave a comment. Why were Raiders fans like gassing this? Because I was going through and I was thinking, I'm like, there's no way Raiders fans are going to be excited, right?
When did Tom Telesco's team ever go far?
But when did Tom Telesco make good decisions besides Justin Herbert? So I'm like, I guess I was like going through and I'm expecting them. You know, I was expecting like a lot of backlash on the move, and it was like Raiders fans were like all for it. And
let me get this straight.
The same guy that
Tom
Staley.
Telesco being hired by a division rival. So basically, you're hiring the guy your rival fired, and then when they also brought in one of the most coveted head coaches in this cycle, you hired like an interim guy. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Antonio Pierce deserved the position. I'm just saying, strictly from a divisional standpoint, you're getting scraps.
Why would you take a guy who you literally just saw fumble one of the easiest rosters? Let's call it for what it is. Are you kidding me? If you took the audio of us from 2 years ago about the Chargers' future, we would have had the Chargers right there making a playoff run this year. Like, that's where the Chargers were supposed to be.
So,
and Tom Telesco made sure that wasn't the case.
Who is going to be the coach in Seattle? You got Bill Belichick out there.
That's who at this point.
But bro, but why are you moving on from Pete Carroll then?
I feel like that. But that's the problem. Like at this rate, if they bring in Belichick, there's a lot of questions you have to ask. But I do think I'll say this. I'm never going to question bringing Belichick to that defense, because I do think that he would cook with that defense.
What are the teams with head coaching vacancies still? The Commanders and the Seahawks?
I don't think there's any way.
Like, why did the Panthers hire
the Commanders
Dave Canales as their head coach?
They're not going to risk that window. Wait, I'm sorry. Repeat that.
You saw the the Panthers hired Dave Canales as their head coach? Bro,
I feel
many weird hirings.
I'm not. Look, I hope he because I'm never going to wish bad on someone's job. Hopefully, he can do good for himself and make that right. Like, I'm never going to wish bad on that, even if they're a rival. What I will say is this: I don't think I've had a more bleak outlook on a head coaching future than Dave Canales as of right now. And it's not his fault. It's because the first-year play caller into that situation. It's either going to be a perfect situation or it's going to be literally a joke. And he would agree. I'm sure he would agree. He set himself up for this knowing and taking that job. He also knows that he's getting a long-time security, and even if his shit goes and hits the fan, you know what? He went from being high school play caller, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 10 years ago, to then becoming offensive coordinator in the NFL and then becoming head coach. Shit, if you guys Dave Canales, there's no way that no matter how this goes, that it wasn't a great stretch for him in his life. So I'm saying congratulations to Dave no matter what. I get it. I'm not trying to knock the man.
I like Dave Canales. It just doesn't make sense for like the situation. Because my thing is like, bro, like he doesn't strike me as like a big culture guy.
That's the biggest thing. And if you step in there, you have got to have such an alpha energy that not only to an extent, it's a weird thing. Not to say you're going to overshadow him, but you've got to kind of get the players' minds off that motherfucker. And you know who I'm talking about. You got to get their minds off that motherfucker. And you got to be enough of that motherfucker to keep him off your heels. Where it's like, look, bro, like, do you trust me enough or not? But that's the problem. I don't think Tepper is that type of guy with anybody. That's why I don't think they even looked at Belichick. I don't think Tepper wants somebody in the building that he knows is out alphaing him. I was listening to other people talk about this week. This is not even my own original take. But ever since I heard it, it's the only thing that makes sense. Like, he clearly wants to be the number one decision maker in the building, and he's intimidated by bringing in guys that he knows are able to make better decisions. It's a weird dichotomy, but I think that's almost like, it's like if you're Tepper, you want maximum control. That's the thing, because then it sounds like I'm taking stuff away from Canales. I'm not trying. I'm just saying.
I like
you want like the least experience because you're a control freak.
I like Canales. I would like to see him as a head coach, but maybe on a team that is a little bit more stable. Because it's just like, my thing is like, maybe Canales took the job and was like, okay, everyone around the league knows what this situation is. What if I just go in and say, fuck it, I'm just going to run this team how I want. I'm not going to listen to them because at the end of the day, they're going to give me a 4-year contract. If I get fired, I'm living off that.
Well, and look, the writing's on the wall. Look at this. If you, I can't make this up. I've never seen this before. If you look up the thing, look at the first image that pops up.
Carolina Circus.
It's David Tepper's circus. Like, I think, yeah, so if you're Dave Canales, the writing's already on the wall. Like, he's a 66-year-old man, and the fan base already sees what it is. Like, he's already, like, the fact that he's old, I'm just bringing up because the fact is that he's old.
Yeah.
Here's why, because you put enough pressure on him. He said, fuck this, man. I'm too old for this. I think the fan base, I'm serious. Panthers fans would agree. It's the time to keep the foot on the gas and pressure of, like, this is not acceptable is now more than ever. Because you're almost in a situation, genuinely. You really have just got to push that man out the door like we've seen happen with Snyder recently. And it took a long, long time with Snyder. So don't give up now. You got a lot of work to do still, Panthers fans.
Before we end this, I want to throw this possibility out to you because I just thought of this. Because I think Ben Johnson's probably a lock for the Commander's job. That just makes the most sense. Is there any chance that if Dan Quinn gets hired by Seattle, the Cowboys do a 360, fire McCarthy and hire Belichick?
I don't know why they didn't just do that to begin with.
But I'm just,
especially now. No, I here's my thing. I don't think so because I think that Jerry's the type of dude who doesn't like having egg on his face. I think he would not do that just to not have the egg on his face.
It's fair. All right, well, thank you guys for watching. This has been You Don't Know Ball. We only got one more in-season episode coming because it's the Super Bowl. End of the year. Ready for the offseason.
We got tons of off-season content coming for y'all, though. We appreciate y'all watching. If you enjoyed, drop a like, drop a sub. We'd love to see you again. We appreciate y'all so much for coming through for this video.
Yep. Let us know in the comments who you think is going to win this weekend.